Oh, we're back, everybody. We are back, and Jon Jones is again embarrassing himself in interviews, making a fool of himself. Why will this man not just say, look, I'm not feeling the same way as I used to, I'm going to retire? No, he can't. He's an idiot. He thinks he's going to stay in the sport, but not fight Aspinall. And that makes sense, and that doesn't make him a blatant duck, and making him a blatant having no respect for the rankings and the up-and-comers and giving people opportunities the same way he was given an opportunity, the same way Alex Pereira was given an opportunity by Yuri Prohaska after barely beating Jan Blachowicz. We're about to talk about everything today. I've got loads of notes. We're going to react to the interview that he did last night. Obviously, it's fight week. We're going to get a load of Jon Jones content this week, and it's kind of a bad week. This week's a huge week for MMA, and I start my new job tomorrow, and it's literally like huge long hour days, so it's going to be very difficult to make videos. I will still do it though. I'm literally sat in a shed right now with a camera, so let's talk about it. But first things first, everyone, we're gonna react to this little clip. It's about a 1.5-minute clip I've got here for you, 2-minute clip. We're gonna play it through. He's doing an interview. We're gonna listen to the question. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna deep dive, and I'm gonna break down why Jon Jones just needs to be out this sport already, because he's really tearing it down and he's really making a mockery of MMA. And people say, oh, you know, a lot of you black Americans in the comments have been saying, you know, oh, he's been so dominant for so many years. And yeah, you know, a lot of those years where you saw the suspensions, where he fought once and would take 1.5 years off, then fight again, and then he took 3 years off before waiting for Ngannou to leave the UFC, and then he came. Oh, then he said, "Oh, okay, I'll fight a heavyweight. 5 weeks time in December, I'll fight." He's an idiot. He's an absolute idiot. He's played his career very carefully, very crafty. He's never fought anyone the same size or bigger than him that was well rounded. It was a lot of fat light heavyweights that were 5'11", no punching power, and the ones he did struggle with were bigger guys. However, they weren't well rounded enough, and they also got illegally hit, and they got kneed in the face and eye poked. You know, so this guy's whole legacy is fraudulent. You know, he'd be the greatest of all time in my eyes if it was about beating your wife, as he has done 5 or 6 times, as we all know, leaving her in a pool of her own blood in a hotel room, and the kids had to tell reception. So we can speak about that later as well. I can bring all this up. As you guys know, I've made a video, a big 20-minute breakdown of why he's not the GOAT, which all of you absolutely hated, but you know, I think I got £1.30 from that video, so I really appreciate it. Let's watch this interview, boys. This guy's voice is really irritating, by the way, so just bear with me.
Where you're coming from, and I think that if anybody has the choice between Jon Jones retiring or Jon Jones fighting Alex Pereira, I think everybody's taking the latter choice. The big question, I think, in people's minds are, does the heavyweight title have to be on the line here? Because the heavyweight title, I think, with an interim champion, that's what people are kind of hung up on, is the unification of that title. Would you?
Right. It's not just the fact it's the unification of the title. It's the fact that it makes the most sense. It's the biggest fight. It's the funnest fight. It's Jon Jones' biggest challenge of his whole career, when he's meant to be the GOAT, given this young, up-and-coming, hungry heavyweight who's demolishing people in a minute, who's finished 6 of the top 10 in the heavyweight division in a minute. I had a lot of comments on the last video saying, oh, you know, heavyweight's an easy division. Fucking hell. I mean, Volkov, Blades, Pavlovich, Cyril Gane, all these guys are absolute monsters of men. And this is the best the heavyweight division has ever been in the history of the UFC. You know, people forget when Jon Jones originally was the light heavyweight champ. Everyone was saying, "Oh, go fight Cain Velasquez." He then didn't. Everyone said Jon Jones versus Ngannou is the fight to make next. Jon Jones needed more time to bulk up, apparently. However, a week later, Ngannou left the UFC, and then 5 weeks later, Jon Jones was fighting for the vacant heavyweight championship. This guy's afraid. His whole career is fraudulent. He's blatantly afraid. And all of you African Americans that are siding with him, I haven't even mentioned the drug tests he's failed. He's got no contests on his record because he won fights with steroids, you know. He's technically only beaten DC once with picograms of steroids in his system. When he came back after a huge layoff to fight Gustafsson for the second time, they had to move the whole event because of all the steroids he's been using. And he had picograms in his system then. You know, obviously he couldn't flush it out well enough. And people say, oh, he didn't have them in his system the night of the fight. What about training, recovering, being able to do more than other people? Like, it's not natural. He's been tested in the past and he had the testosterone levels of a child. A chemically castrated male, a fucking child. Which means something else in his system was replacing his testosterone. He's a cheat. Look at him. He looks like a cheat. Let's keep watching. So in other words, people want to see Jones fight, but they want to see him fight the fights that make sense. Because if not, if he's saying, "Oh, I'm not going to fight Aspinall, I'm going to go fight Pereira, but I'll stay in the UFC, just not fight him," it's blatantly just making a mockery of everything.
You say relinquish the title and then fight Alex Pereira at just a heavyweight feature fight, or go back down to light heavyweight. What's your mindset on the interim championship being kind of a hang-up?
Well, the interim championship shouldn't have been there in the first place. The only reason why there was an interim championship fight was because I got hurt and they needed to keep the importance of that Madison Square Garden event. But Sergey and Aspinall shouldn't have been fighting for an interim title in the first place. They should have just been a replacement fight.
I agree with the fact that that shouldn't have been for the interim belt after Jon Jones was hurt, and the UFC knew he'd be out for over a year. Jones then should have been stripped, and it should have been for the undisputed championship. So then Jones's comeback to fight one of... I mean, at this point, Pavlovich would be on an 8-fight first-round KO streak if he knocked out Tom. But now it's Aspinall, the fastest and lightest heavyweight we've ever seen, killing people inside of a minute. His average fight time is 2 minutes. I think the interim title was necessary, but also you have to remember that was on 2 weeks' notice. Those two guys stepped up. Jon Jones has never stepped up on 2 weeks' notice in his entire career, let alone 3 or 4 weeks' notice. He said no and cancelled the whole event when offered chael sonnen on a week or two's notice. He's just not built like that. And bear in mind that chael sonnen was a fucking middleweight at the time. So this guy's career is fraudulent. Tom versus Pavlovich should have been for the interim belt because they had to keep the hype around that card, being like, okay, Jon Jones is out. This is the next up-and-comer that's going to fight Jon Jones, one of these two hungry lions. You know, it would have made more sense to have Stipe fight one of them, but Stipe only wanted to fight Jon. You know, this is a legacy fight more for Stipe than it is Jon. But realistically, Stipe is going to get beaten on the weekend this Saturday, so... I'm really annoyed to hear Jones say this. I think him trying to discredit the fact that he shouldn't even be a champion, let alone fight me. I'm gonna go fight Pereira. It's just ridiculous. It's the most anticipated heavyweight fight of all time. Aspinall versus Jones. It sounds cool. It's great. It would be a huge fucking fight. And Aspinall's fucking terrifying. And also, if Aspinall wasn't humble, if Aspinall was calling him gay online, if Aspinall was calling him all this and that, bringing up the wife beating stuff, it would be like, fuck, we want to see that fight even more. This Stipe fight means nothing. It's a pathetic pay-per-view. It doesn't do anything for the division. I'm so angry Dana White is obsessed with Jon Jones. It's so annoying.
It's just a main event fight. I think making it an interim fight was premature.
Pavlovich was on a 7-fight first-round KO streak. Aspinall was something very similar. I think one fight went to the second round, but the rest were all finishes inside 1 minute. Finished Volkov in 3 minutes. Tom Aspinall has beaten more heavyweights than you. You've only beaten one-dimensional heavyweight, which was a bad performance from them on 5 weeks' notice. When you were preparing and you were hearing from the UFC and Ngannou was about to leave and you were in camp early, you're a scumbag. You're a sly, dirty scumbag.
And now you have a bunch of confused people, you know?
There's an interim champion. The interim champion fights Jon Jones next. That's what everyone wants. That's not confused. You're literally gaslighting people into thinking we shouldn't be thinking that. Just don't even get me started, man.
When you have a dominant champion that's been around as long as I have, there was no reason to put an interim championship.
You're not dominant. Barely won a split decision against Thiago Santos, who's tiny for light heavyweight and is now in PFL losing. Dominic Reyes, you lost to. He got absolutely robbed. The whole community thinks so. He's someone your height who you couldn't take down, but he was robbed and you eye-poked him loads. Oh, Anthony Smith you took to a decision after massively illegally kneeing him, but he's a warrior, so he continued. However, he's shit. You've seen how his career's gone. Who else? Oh, let me think. You've never dropped anyone with your hands. You knocked down one man, a pumped-up middleweight named Lyoto Machida, who you knocked down when he ran into a right hand that you probably didn't even mean to throw. You wobbled DC with a head kick, then kicked out his legs. That was a great performance. It then gets overturned because you were juiced out of your gills and a castrated man at that point. So you're so dominant, and also saying, when you've been a champion as long as I have, your reign has been so long only because you take 3-year breaks with suspension due to steroids. You take 3 years off to go up to heavyweight allegedly. We've already covered that. That was just a faff because you were terrified of Ngannou. Your bad performances, you claimed you were bored. But then as soon as you meet someone who's, a good match for you, like Gustafsson, you almost lose. You done very well in the first fight with Gustafsson. I'll give you that. You won that fight. You were on steroids. The second fight, Gustafsson, granted, was past his prime, had lost to DC a few times at that point, hadn't got any really credible wins. But, that was a fight back after, what was it, 2 years off, a year and a half off after you crashed into that pregnant lady, ran back to the scene, stole your cocaine. I could go on. Your career is fraudulent. So you've had this long, huge title reign, but I've only fought like 10 times, and 2 of them have been finishes. The rest have been split decisions and really, really close fights. You're the Bilal Muhammad of this division. Now that you're at heavyweight, you've ruined heavyweight. This is the best heavyweight division we've seen ever, and you've just come in and ruined it.
Belt out there. So that's the repercussion of Madison Square Garden last year.
So would you care if a title was on the line against Alex Pereira? You'd be happy with it being a feature fight?
It'd be cool to fight over the heavyweight championship, but I would also willingly give up the heavyweight championship. I walked away from the light heavyweight championship, and I'd love to walk away from this one as well, on top, on his own terms.
You walked away from the light heavyweight championship after barely beating Reyes to the point where it was one of the biggest championship robberies we've ever seen. He clearly won the first 3 rounds clear won them. Everyone was raging about that. A few months later, after again holding up the division, you say, I'm going to heavyweight. You then take 3 years off to bulk up. You left the light heavyweight belt because fair enough, probably were bored of that division, wanted a bit some fresh competition, wanted to cement your legacy. That's all there. That's all valid points. I'm not going to go completely against him. But at that point, the only man at heavyweight that would pose a threat in the grappling was Daniel Cormier. And you'd beaten him twice. So going up, you knew it was an immediate title shot, but you decided to take 3 years. And yes, you probably were just bored of light heavyweight, but the fact you're now saying, I'll just give up the heavyweight belt, is pretty much saying, I will let Aspinall be undisputed as long as I can fight someone else. I'll let Aspinall have the heavyweight championship. I will vacate the heavyweight championship as long as I can fight somebody else, being Alex Pereira, for the BMF belt. My friend, you are nothing of a BMF. You are awful. You're not a BMF. I don't even consider this man in the top 3 GOAT conversation. Realistically, you've got George St. Pierre massively as the GOAT. Yeah, then you've got Demetrius Johnson, undoubtedly. 3rd place, you could probably give it to an Anderson Silva just because of the performances and the show and all that type of thing. Jones isn't even up there for me because his career has been shit. He's not had a good career. He's been on top for so long because he's taken years off at a time and had USADA issues and drug problems, and the level of competition Jones has fought is not even close to the level of competition we've got in these divisions now, and I don't even think he would be top 5 nowadays if this was the Jones that we've seen. He's never once fought a bigger and well-rounded guy like Aspinall, and Stipe's not that. Stipe hasn't fought in 4 years and he got flatlined by Ngannou in his last fight. Like, it's ridiculous this fight's even happening. He would give Tom the belt and then stay in the sport just so he doesn't have to fight him. And Tom's a bigger and really well-rounded guy. Tom Aspinall started with jiu-jitsu and is knocking people out in a minute. It's absolutely mental that Jon Jones this is even a conversation that he's a GOAT. He's not. His career's massively fraudulent. He ducked Cain Velasquez, he then ducked Ngannou, and now he's ducking Tom Aspinall. He's also a drug cheat. His fights are not even near dominant. The Cyril Gane fight was a good performance. We all know Gane underperformed. However, it was on 5 weeks' notice, and Jones knew that was. I mean, Jones did very well to submit him like that, but Gane's so one-dimensional. He's not a good level of fighter nowadays, and the only way to keep the man in the sport is to give him the fights he wants. And saying I'm going to stay in the sport but only fight Alex Pereira is fucking ridiculous. And he knows he'll just jump in there and take Pereira down and finish him, which he would, because he's got that level of grappling. However, the whole point of this sport is seeing the best fight the best, and the huge levels of competition. We just aren't getting that. We're never going to get that from this guy. He's just not built like that. He's a drug cheat. He's got terrible character. He's so unfair.
Good head and shoulder, making lots of money. I love the position that I'm in right now.
I'd love the position as well. You're getting everything you want from a completely fraudulent career, and the boss loves you. It's absolutely nuts.
Fighting Pereira for the Banff belt, that'd be cool. We both have 2 belts in 2 weight classes, and the night we fought, we'd be both fighting for our 3rd belt, which would be the Banff. How cool would that be?
Yeah, that'd be really cool, because he's not the same size as you, and he can't grapple. But yeah, sure, Aspinall, here, have my belt. I'm gonna go fight somebody else. You have that belt, buddy. Here you go, Tom. You have my heavyweight championship. I'm gonna go fight somebody else because I really don't want to fight you. You're scary. It's absolutely ridiculous. His career is completely fraudulent. And all you Jon Jones fans in the comments being like, Jones can do what he wants, etc. Oh, he is. I'm aware he is, and I know he can do what he wants. But you have to sit back and understand, why do you like him? And the most plain and simple answer is, because you're black as well. I said it. And I'm going to get cancelled for saying that. But that's why. And anyone with any intelligence and any intellect and any sort of care and passion for this sport will know that this whole situation at heavyweight is a fucking disgrace, because we could have had such a cool heavyweight run and cool heavyweight division. Aspinall has had to defend an interim belt because this guy's a pussy. And I would rather he just retires and leaves than stay in the sport but fight someone else, because I don't want to hear him anymore. And the fact that people even are considering him the GOAT really enrages me so much. See you later, guys. Thanks for watching.